The first time the bone-crunching sound echoed through Lecture Hall C on the orbital campus of the Andromeda Interstellar Academy, every alien in the room froze. Professor Ulox, a six-limbed veteran from the fifth moon of Enceladus, paused mid-sentence, his ocular stalks tilting in alarm. The sound repeated, sharp, grating, unmistakably internal. All eyes turned toward the source. Isaac Lorman, the only human exchange student in the Galactic Anthropology program, stood up from his chair, stretching, mid-lecture with a groan and a grimace. "What was that?" hissed Kilu, a pale-skinned Tharnian with translucent ears that fluttered in distress. Isaac blinked, adjusting the collar of his Academy-issued jumpsuit. "Oh, that? That's just my knees when I stand up." Silence. Professor Ulox slowly retracted his stalks and cleared his throat. "Your skeletal structure produced that noise?" "Yeah," Isaac said casually, walking toward the front desk to grab a course handout. "Nothing serious, just some crepitus." Kilu whispered to the student beside him, "What is crepitus? Is it contagious?" Isaac overheard and chuckled. No, it's just air bubbles in the joint, or sometimes cartilage wear. Totally normal for someone who played college baseball and then sat for too long." Professor Ulox blinked slowly. "You are injured?" "Not exactly. It's just wear and tear, from years of motion and gravity. Earth's gravity is stronger than this station's, so my joints got used to more strain." Ulox hesitated. "Your species tolerates chronic joint damage?" Isaac shrugged. A faint pop came from his left shoulder. "We don't really have a choice. Comes with the territory. But I've got physical therapy exercises logged, stretching routines, anti-inflammatories if needed. It's manageable." The class murmured among themselves in disbelief. A skeletal system that deteriorated audibly? And the human was still standing? After the lecture, Kilu approached Isaac cautiously at the refueling station, balancing a tray of nutrient gel. "Your knees, do they always sound like that?" "Only when I sit too long," Isaac said, sipping from a hydration pack. "Or after a workout. Or sometimes just because they feel like it. That cannot be acceptable. The noise suggests structural failure." Isaac laughed, then winced as he adjusted his posture. "Nah, if there was structural failure, I wouldn't be walking. If it gets worse, I'd get an MRI back home, and maybe some physical therapy. Worst case, knee surgery down the line." Kilu looked horrified. "Surgery? You cut open your limbs?" "Not me personally, but yeah, sometimes we have to. Torn meniscus, arthritis, stuff like that." Kilu stared, unblinking. "You live with malfunctioning bone hinges and consider it normal?" Isaac pursed his lips. "I mean, we try not to let it get that bad, but yeah, things break. We adapt, we fix them. It's not ideal, but it's life." Later that week, during a zero-G field excursion to observe microplanetary crust formations, the students were fitted with mag boots. Isaac hesitated before strapping his on. The instructor, a no-nonsense Parnan named Vekra, noticed. "Problem, Lorman." "Just. These things lock my knees at a weird angle, might be an issue. Do you require assistance?" "No, I've got it. Just need to adjust the tension." He bent down, adjusted the boot seals, and then stood up again. Crunch. The entire shuttle cabin went silent. Becker stared. "That sound came from your joints?" Isaac nodded. "Yeah, sorry, I'm fine." "Explain." Isaac sighed. "Okay, so in humans, over time, the cartilage between bones can get thinner. When I move after being still for a while, the surfaces rub a bit, or gas bubbles pop in the synovial fluid. It's not always painful, sometimes just noisy. But this is not. Destructive? Not, unless it comes with pain or swelling. Then it's a problem. I monitor it." Back on board the station, Professor Ulox ordered a full medical evaluation. The Academy's med bay, staffed by a mix of species familiar with various anatomies, was curious about Isaac's condition. Dr. Farrell, a Renali physician, scanned his knees using a multispectrum diagnostic array. The screen lit up with cross-sectional images. There is mild degeneration of the medial meniscus in your right knee, she noted, and early signs of cartilage thinning on the left. Yeah, that tracks, Isaac said, wincing slightly as he flexed his right leg. I figured as much. You are not currently in pain? Some days. Depends on activity and weather. Farrell tilted her head. Weather? Yeah. Cold days make them ache more. Something about barometric pressure. Farrell's assistant logged the data, bewildered. Your biology is extraordinarily fragile. Isaac chuckled bitterly. You're not wrong. Dr. Farrell prescribed a regimen of low-impact exercise and issued him compression sleeves embedded with micro-vibrational therapy patches. You must limit high-impact activity. If your condition worsens, surgical options exist, but recovery would take months. Understood. Over the next few weeks, Isaac's knees became the subject of quiet fascination among the alien students. In the cafeteria, he'd be approached by classmates with questions ranging from, "How do you survive your own body?" to, "Would replacing your entire joint with synthetic materials be preferable?" "Some people do that," Isaac replied one afternoon to a curious drill student. "Knee replacements are common after a certain age. Titanium joints, plastic spacers, the whole deal." "And you walk again?" "Not immediately. Takes time. Physical therapy. But yeah, most people recover fine." The Academy's biomechanics department invited him to a symposium, where he gave a talk titled Living with Degenerative Joint Conditions, A Human Perspective. He included real MRI scans, pain management strategies, and his own exercise logs. The audience was rapt. "And yet you continue to function," Professor Ulock said at the end, clearly impressed. "Adapt and overcome," Isaac said, leaning slightly against the podium. "That's what we do." A few days later, during a team-building drill in simulated Martian terrain, disaster struck. Isaac landed wrong after climbing a loose rock formation. His right leg buckled and he went down hard. The sound wasn't the usual crunch of his knees, it was sharper, angrier. He didn't get up. Vekra rushed to his side. "Do not move. What is injured?" Isaac grit his teeth. "Right knee. Something's wrong. It's not the usual." Medics arrived within minutes. He was stabilized, scanned, and transported to medbay. Dr. Farrell reviewed the scans with a frown. "You have a partial ACL tear and a moderate meniscus injury. We'll need to immobilize the joint and begin conservative management. Surgery is not immediately necessary, but we'll monitor." Isaac groaned. "What's the timeline?" 4 to 6 weeks before you can begin strength exercises. 3 to 4 months for full activity, assuming no complications. For the first week, Isaac was confined to the medbay. The pain was constant, managed with analgesics, and the joint was wrapped in a stabilizing brace. Physical therapy began slowly, flexion exercises, isometric contractions, nothing weight-bearing. Kilu visited regularly, bringing nutrient pouches and endless questions. "Does it hurt now?" "Yes." "Will it stop?" "Eventually." "You were very calm." Isaac exhaled through clenched teeth as he flexed his quad. "Calm is all I've got." By the third week, he was using a hover crutch. The Academy's physical therapist, a stern but encouraging Myrian named Solta, guided him through carefully monitored movements. "No more than 10 degrees flexion today," she warned. Isaac obeyed. Progress was slow, frustrating, but steady. At month 2, he began assisted walking exercises. The pain had dulled to a background hum. His knee still clicked, but it was a familiar sound again, not the sharp crack of trauma. At his final evaluation in month 4, Dr. Farrell nodded. "You've recovered well. The ligament has stabilized. You may resume normal activities, but avoid pivot-heavy motions for another month." Isaac smiled, tired but relieved. "No problem. I'll stick to swimming." That evening, he returned to Lecture Hall C for the first time since the injury. As he took his seat, students whispered, "Greetings." When class ended, he stood slowly. Crunch. Kilu turned. Is that the repaired knee? Isaac nodded. Yep, still crunchy. And that is normal? For me? Yeah, just my knees when I stand up. Kilu shook his head in disbelief. Your resilience continues to terrify. Isaac laughed, genuinely this time. Yeah, mine too. The rehabilitation chamber on Deck 7 smelled faintly of sterilized rubber and citrus antiseptic. Isaac sat on the edge of a low treatment table, knee encased in a flexible exosleeve that pulsed faintly with microcurrents. His leg dangled, foot swaying as he watched the timer tick down on the wall panel. 8 more minutes of neuromuscular stimulation. Across from him, Zelun, an Ukrainian intern with 3 eyes arranged vertically, adjusted the neural interface on a diagnostic pad while glancing up every few seconds. You're clenching your quadriceps inconsistently, Zelun said without looking away from the screen. Try to synchronize the contraction with the pulse light. Isaac squinted at the blinking diode near his ankle. That thing? I thought it was decorative. It's the entire point of this phase, Zelun replied, tapping the pad with a spindly finger. You must retrain proprioceptive feedback, otherwise your gait will remain asymmetrical. Isaac grunted and tightened his thigh again, this time as the light blinked. I swear, half of rehab is just learning what my own body's supposed to be doing. This is because your species' musculoskeletal system lacks internal calibration markers. We Ukrainians have motion-coding tendrils along our femoral ridges. We never forget limb positioning. Isaac blinked. I forget what my own legs are doing 3 times a day. Zayland adjusted the pulse intensity by a fraction. Unbelievable. And yet, you recovered despite this neurological chaos. The door hissed open behind them with a soft pneumatic sigh. Ulox entered, his lower limbs clicking softly against the padded floor. He carried a narrow datapad under one arm and a look of cautious interest. You're progressing ahead of schedule, Ulox observed. The medbay reports full weight-bearing capacity achieved 4 cycles early. Isaac tapped the exo sleeve. This thing helps, kind of like a cheat code for ligaments. Zaylan interrupted. It's not a cheat code. It's compensatory scaffolding. Still feels like an upgrade, Isaac said. I've got more bounce now than I did last year. Ulox tilted his head. Are you not concerned that this mechanical assistance may mask underlying instability? Isaac flexed the joint gently. We're not skipping steps. It's just support while the tissues finish remodeling. This kind of injury needs time, and I'm not about to mess up the graft site. Zaylin looked up. You didn't undergo grafting. No, but the meniscus will scar over, and I don't need uneven pressure stalling that. Trust me, I did my reading. Ulox's ocular stalks twitched slightly. Self-directed research, of course. Isaac shrugged. It's my knee. I'd kind of like to keep it functional. Functionality seems a moving target with your kind, Ulox muttered, then added. You are expected in comparative locomotion at mid-cycle. Will you attend? As long as there's a chair with back support and I don't have to sprint, I'm there. Zaloon powered down the interface. He's cleared for classroom attendance, though I recommend avoiding lateral rotation for another 12 days. Isaac stood slowly, testing the weight. No sharp turns, got it. Later that afternoon, the comparative locomotion lab was alive with clattering limbs, undulating membranes, and the occasional hiss of hydraulic limbs adjusting balance. The room had been reconfigured into a circular apparatus, a rotating platform with adjustable gravity segments to simulate different planetary environments. Isaac leaned against a padded rail, scanning the exercise list displayed overhead. We're doing multi-species gait trials? Professor Tual, a wiry Xenthian with a body that shimmered like liquid mercury, floated past. Yes. You will be paired with the NORAC student for synchronized mobility testing under variable gravities. Isaac turned to see his assigned partner, a hulking quadrupedal being with thickly scaled limbs and a neck like a tree trunk. The NORAC's translator chirped. You are the human with the unstable knees. Isaac extended a hand. And you're the one who walks like a tank. The NORAC blinked its 3 eyes in sequence. I do not know what a tank is. Let's keep it that way. They stepped onto the platform together, sensors aligning with their respective body types. The gravity shifted incrementally, moving from lunar to Martian to Earth normal. At Earth gravity, Isaac's knee twinged faintly, not pain, but a tightening that made him glance down. "You are exhibiting compensatory motion on your right side," the Norak observed. "Yeah, muscle memory. I'm trying to override it." The platform tilted forward slightly, simulating a slope. As they walked in tandem, the Norak's movements remained smooth and deliberate. Isaac adjusted every few steps, recalibrating instinctively. "You correct in real time," the Norak said. "Without conscious analysis?" "Mostly," Isaac replied. "Sometimes my brain just guesses and hopes my leg goes the right way. This is extremely inefficient. Welcome to being human." After the trial, as they stepped off the platform, the Norak lowered its massive head. "Does your body often require real-time adaptation under structural uncertainty?" Isaac wiped sweat from his brow. "Pretty much all the time. We're not built for perfection. We're built to figure it out as we go." The Norak gave a low, rhythmic exhalation, a gesture Isaac had learned meant respect. "Your physiology is illogical, yet your persistence is formidable." Back in the dormitory wing later that evening, Isaac sat with his leg elevated, a cooling sleeve wrapped around his knee. The exo sleeve was charging on the wall, its internal battery drained after a full day of assisted activity. A small group had gathered in the common area. Kilu was curled in a gravity hammock, reading. A pair of Tarluni students were engaged in a slow-motion dance designed to simulate their homeworld's low-gravity rituals. Isaac rested his head against the wall, letting the room's ambient hum lull his senses. He didn't notice when Professor Ulox entered until the room quieted. "I've submitted your case to the Academy's Xenomedical Archives," Ulox said. "They've expressed interest in documenting your rehabilitation protocols for cross-species reference." Isaac blinked. "You're turning my busted knee into a research paper?" "Not just the injury. The adaptation process. Your species' capacity to function with incomplete mechanical integrity is educational." Isaac snorted. "Glad my limping is contributing to science." Ulox stepped closer. "Tell me, after all this, what would compel your kind to return to high-risk movement? Wouldn't abstaining from impact be more logical?" Isaac adjusted the cooling sleeve. "Because we don't like limits. There's something wired into us. We break, we heal, and we try again, even if it's not perfect." Ulox considered this. "A philosophy based on tolerance rather than optimization." "Some of us do optimize," Isaac said, "but most of us, we learn to live with the quirks. Some knees crack, some backs ache. We just adjust." Ilu piped up from the hammock. "Is that why your species dances on unstable surfaces with no support gear?" Isaac grinned. "You mean nightclubs? Yeah, that's us. Bad joints and worse balance, but we still dance." Ulox shook his head slowly. "Fascinating. Utterly reckless, yet undeniably adaptive." As the professor left, the Tarluni students resumed their slow orbits, and Kilu floated a nutrient wafer toward Isaac with a flick of his fingers. "Your body is unreliable," Kilu said, "but you seem to trust it anyway." Isaac caught the wafer and took a bite. "I trust it to surprise me. That's usually enough." The next morning, the swelling had gone down noticeably. He walked without the sleeve for the first time in weeks, carefully gauging each step. He felt the faint grind in the joint, but no instability. In the biomech lab, Zaloon scanned his gait profile again. "Your stride is within acceptable human variance." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "That's the nicest thing anyone said about my walking." Zealand tapped the display. "You are no longer compensating. That's a milestone." "Yes, that means I'm cleared for stairs." Zaloon looked alarmed. "Do not attempt stairs until next week." Isaac laughed and limped toward the exit. "Relax, I'll take the ramp." Behind him, Zelen muttered, "Why not just redesign your environments to eliminate vertical traversal?" Reaching the floor, Isaac called back over his shoulder, Because we like the view from higher up. The lab's ambient lighting dimmed slightly as the artificial dusk cycle settled in. Isaac lay flat on his back on a diagnostic table in the kinesiology suite, one leg strapped into a motorized resistance arc. The machine pivoted his knee slowly, methodically, through a controlled range of motion. A tray of calibration tools clinked softly nearby as Dr. Farrell adjusted the machine's parameters. She didn't speak right away. She rarely did when she was focused. Her long silver fingers tapped the console in quiet rhythm. "You're still favoring external rotation at full extension," she finally said. Isaac exhaled through his nose. "I noticed that too. It's subtle, but it's there." Farrell nodded once. "Compensation habits can linger, especially after trauma. We'll isolate the anterior chain next, no skipping." "Wouldn't dream of it." She turned the arc off and removed the strap from his shin. "Sit up slowly. Don't let your hip twist." He obeyed, grimacing slightly as he swung his leg around. The joint made a faint, rubbery click. Farrell raised an eyebrow. "Uncomfortable." "Not painful, just weird. Feels like everything's still negotiating terms." "You're in the remodeling phase. The body's still laying down collagen, still figuring out where tension belongs. You're not done yet." Isaac rolled his shoulders. "Almost 5 months. Feels like I should be." "Time doesn't equal readiness," Farrell said. "Tissue heals at its own pace. You don't get to vote." He looked at her. "But I get to argue, right?" Farrell let out a quiet laugh. "That's what makes you human." A soft chime signaled the next appointment was due. Farrell gestured toward the side door. "Observation track, no brace. Walk the full circuit. Record your steps." Isaac stood with care, adjusted his balance, and walked out onto the track that circled the suite perimeter. The surface felt slightly textured under his feet, designed to simulate uneven ground. Each step required attention. He wasn't limping, but he wasn't exactly gliding either. As he passed the observation deck, a trio of students watched from behind the glass. One of them, a thin-limbed Klangorian, leaned forward with fascination. "Can you not understand?" the Klangorian said, voice muffled through the divider. "He walks, yet his limb was damaged. It should have been discarded." The other student, a scale-plated Grolith, responded, "Humans do not discard parts unless absolutely necessary. They coax them back into function." The third, a soft-skinned Huron, tilted her head. "What if it fails again? Do they risk repeat injury?" Isaac paused mid-step and looked at them. "Yeah, sometimes we do." The students startled slightly, not expecting him to hear. "I mean," Isaac continued, "the goal is not to get hurt again, obviously, but we don't stop just because something went wrong once." The Klangorian pressed closer. "But the failure of structure implies it is no longer reliable. Does that not frighten you?" "It used to," Isaac said, "but you learn where the limits are. You build around them. You make the structure better. Even if it is not how it was before." Isaac resumed walking, slowly, especially then. Later that week, Professor Tuwal called for a practical field assessment. All students were required to complete an outdoor maneuverability course on one of the station's artificial terrain domes, no exceptions. Isaac received the notification without comment. At dawn cycle, he arrived at the entrance to Dome 6 wearing a joint-stabilizing undersuit and low-friction boots. The sky projection overhead simulated a pale blue atmosphere with gentle solar flares playing across the dome's ceiling. Tuwal greeted him with a nod. "You've been cleared?" Isaac lifted his leg slightly, rotating the knee. "Range of motion is back, strength about 85%, no instability." Tuwal gestured to a narrow ridge trail ahead. "You'll take the rocky path with Kilu. Your pace dictates the segment's duration." Kilu adjusted his harness straps and looked at Isaac. "You are certain about this? I can request reassignment." Isaac checked his boot tension and stretched out his leg. "Nah, if I don't test it now, I'll keep second-guessing it. Let's go." The trail wound through jagged terrain, with synthetic boulders and shifting gravel patches that challenged balance and footing. Kilu moved with practiced grace, adjusting his center of gravity with subtle tail movements. Isaac followed more cautiously, watching each step, adjusting when the terrain tilted unexpectedly. Halfway through the course, they reached a narrow ledge overlooking a simulated ravine. The jump to the other side wasn't far, but the landing zone sloped downward. Kilu hesitated. "We can take the long way around." Isaac measured the distance. "If I land with my left and control the descent, I'll be fine." "You are gambling with the outcome." Isaac stepped back, then launched forward, landing on the slope with a controlled slide. The impact sent a jolt through his leg, but the joint held. No wobble, no collapse, just a clean landing and a steady balance check. Kilu landed beside him with silent precision. That appeared stable. Isaac exhaled. Felt stable, too. They finished the course without incident. Back at the dome's entry point, Toole reviewed the footage. "You adjusted mid-stride twice, once during lateral instability and once on gravel displacement. Both times you corrected within a half second." Isaac wiped his brow. "I've been practicing." "You did not overcorrect. That's significant." Isaac leaned on a support rail. "I used to think recovery meant getting back to how I was before. But it's more like getting good at being how I am now." Toole closed the footage. Adaptation is not the absence of difference, it's the mastery of it. That evening, in the common room, a large holoscreen played footage from the day's course. The students had gathered to review and celebrate the final phase of the term. Isaac's jump replayed in slow motion, analyzed from 3 angles. Kilu sat nearby, sipping a pale blue nutrient drink. "You did not hesitate," he said. "I wanted to," Isaac admitted. "But I've done the work. I had to trust it." Zaloon drifted over from the refreshment console. "You know your joint will never be identical to its original configuration." "I know." "But you accept this?" Isaac nodded. "I don't need it to be like before. I just need it to work for what's next." Dr. Farrell entered the room, arms folded. "Your discharge summary is complete. You're officially cleared for full activity, with quarterly reevaluations." Isaac stood and offered a small, respectful bow. "Thanks for getting me through it." "You got yourself through it," she replied. "I just made sure your knee didn't fall apart again." The room broke into quiet laughter. Even the normally stoic Grolith gave a low, guttural chuff of amusement. Isaac looked around the room. Aliens of every shape and movement style, each with bodies tuned for different worlds, different gravities, different expectations. Yet here they were, all watching the same footage of a human knee doing something it wasn't supposed to do well anymore, and doing it anyway. Kilu leaned closer. "You know, when you first stood up and made that noise, I thought something inside you had ruptured." Isaac laughed. "Honestly, sometimes I still do." But his knee no longer protested when he got up to leave. It bent, flexed, and carried him forward without argument. The crunch had gone quiet, and maybe that was enough.